Well, hello there. Welcome back to a video. In this video, I wanted to give a few thoughts on monogamy. I just wanted to give a few of my fluctuating beliefs about monogamous situations that people get themselves into and stick it out with another person for quite a while. And they change so much, my feelings, my beliefs, and they're not a one-size-fits-all too. Like, I can talk about my own experiences with trying to make that work, but it's going to vary from person to person to such a degree that I'm not going to give advice. I'm not going to try to give some broad advice about broads or anything like that. I'm not going to do that because there's so much complexity and there's so much room to fuck up there when it comes to trying to because people vary. I just spit a little bit. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to talk about monogamy. So fucking one person for quite some time. People are able to do that sometimes. Not very well, though. The failures of monogamy are blatant and they're everywhere. And I think when it comes to, say, getting married and going that route of white picket fence and having reproductive offspring with another person, doing that is a really big deal. It's like one of the most monumental things that people will do with another person and commit themselves to. And that's a very powerful adhesive. Having children with someone, that is oftentimes one of the biggest reasons that people will try to make it work, try to stick it out over the span of decades. And there are all sorts of other reasons, if you have, you get intertangled, you get into some entanglements, and if one person requires the other person to a very high, desperate degree, or that's felt, a feeling of that is felt. It's pretty often that some games of manipulation will be involved, and one person will feel like they have a very strong obligation to not leave. And that varies a lot when it comes to, men doing that to women and women doing that to men. That's a common thing. That's a very common cause, a common culprit of monogamy. It's not out of positive stuff. It's not a feeling of we want to continue to be together because we have something really good and valuable and special and stuff. It's more so a fear of the negatives that might arise if one of them is to back out or is just in, and it just becomes more difficult to get out of them the longer you're in them. Generally, even if things are going to shit, it's just so easy to drag it out longer than it needs to be dragged out. It's so easy to do that, and it's way easier to do that when you get married with them, when you sign that contract and stuff, and then when you have children with them, then that just adds to the difficulty. For many people out there. For many people, it doesn't really. For many people, they're able to create other people and then just get the fuck out of there, and it's not a big deal. And that's a common thing. I think it's becoming a more common thing overall. I think that people are having an easier time extracting themselves from that, from having to raise their little biological creations. I think dudes are getting better at getting out of that, and women are getting worse when it comes to trying to find a guy that's gonna not do that, I think that's occurring. I think that's becoming a more common thing. It's always been pretty common, even throughout human history, for dudes to just shoot the loads and then get out of there and go milk shopping or whatever and just not return. That's always been a thing. The obligation has always been has been laid far heavier on the women when it comes to the procreation, for obvious reasons that are biological. And I think that there needs to be adhesive to keep people from running away from each other after a certain point. There has to be, because there's all sorts of reasons to run. There's all sorts of reasons to get out of there. There are many. There's like often what is just no shortage of justifications to end things with a person. And there needs to be some pretty powerful things holding them together and keeping one or the other from getting out of it. Because, when it comes to relationships, it's very common for many things to just to wither and to decay and to die. When it comes to the things that people build monogamous relationships upon, You okay? And it's just, see, platonic relationships is where it's at with this fucking guy right here. Sorry. But having a dog will never compare to the fulfillment, to the just immense meaning that can be derived from raising a biological extension of yourself. That's what I've been told, and I can wrap my head around that claim. I can do that. But I would wager that the compromises and just the risks and everything involved there's so many reasons to not do that. And there are relatively few, I think, to go through with it, if you consider the full scope outcomes of your life. But even if you do that, there are still good reasons to go that, get married, maybe pop out a couple little chillins. There are good reasons to do that as well when it comes to the long term, of course. But it really heavily depends on who you end up doing that with and the circumstances of that. That's gonna come into play. That's gonna matter for the most part. That's gonna play a large role in how viable of a biological investment you are partaking in when it comes to reproduction. Because that's the way in which many people, gauging human behavior. That's why a lot of people create people. People talk about all sorts of sentimental reasons as to why, but I think it's really common. And maybe not, whoever's watching, maybe not you, but most of the people that intentionally do reproduce, they're not really thinking much about the super duper sentimental stuff. Or insofar as they are doing that, a lot of it's too beyond the more realistic concerns. Like it's very idealized, very idealistic. Many of the intentional reasons that people have for popping a couple people out of themselves or shooting loads and then having someone do that for you, like a woman. And there are all sorts of reasons people do that. A lot of the reasons are not very good. But yeah, monogamy is something that I've always had a difficult time with, and I'm still figuring things out. I'm in my mid-20s, so